Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jack Dory. I'm the business manager for the Old Lock Horse Museum. We're here today to talk a little bit about a conference that's coming up November the 2nd through the 5th here in El Cajon, across the street. At the conference, we're going to be talking about the history of Highway 80 and the events and circumstances that led up to that history. The significance of 100 years ago was in November of 100 years ago, of 1923. San Diego was named the terminus of a transcontinental highway that ran between Florida and San Diego. That highway eventually was funded by the federal government and by the 1950s became one of the most traveled, actually the most traveled transcontinental highway in the United States, owing to the fact that it was a southern route and it was an all-weather route. It didn't have to deal with the bad weather conditions of some of the northern routes that say went from Chicago to San Francisco. At any rate, my job here today is to introduce to you our panelists. If you want to hear the long version of what they're going to have to say, we invite you to come to the conference. This will be on Friday morning, November the 3rd. But we are going to give you the opportunity to listen to what each one of them has to say here, and if you will hold the questions till the end, we'll have plenty of time for questions. So let me introduce the first individual that's to my left here. This is Charlotte Kale. Apologize. Charlotte Kale. Charlotte is the president of the Old Spanish Trail Highway Centennial Association, and she's here all the way from San Antonio, Texas. To my right is Larry Fletcher. Larry is the oldest living male member of the Fletcher family. He is the grandson of Colonel Ed Fletcher, who was instrumental in bringing the Transcontinental Highway, probably the single most important person in bringing this Transcontinental Highway to San Diego, as opposed to Los Angeles. On my far left is Rob Harding. Rob Harding is the man who knows more about the details of how this highway was built. If you want to know about concrete, if you want to know about road blasting, Rob is the man to talk about or to talk with. And on my far right is Newell Booth. Newell is deeply involved with historic vehicles. If you have a chance, we have a 1922 Upmobile out in our garden, and he'll be happy to show you around. He'll also be talking to you about our backcountry drive that will be taking place on Saturday, November the 4th. So without further ado here, I might add, one of our speakers that was announced to you was Bonnie Fletcher. Bonnie is not well at the moment. And so her dad, Larry, is going to be speaking for her. At any rate, let me introduce to you Charlotte Kale, president of the Old Spanish Trail History Association.
And I can stay right here, right?
As long as you're close to that microphone.
Oh, okay, yeah. Welcome. I am so glad to see being hosted by the Olaf Horse Museum has been a godsend to us. Jack has done so many things that have helped co-chair of this event. In 1915, in Mobile, Alabama, in 1915 there were a lot of north-south highways being built, but there weren't east-west highways. So Mobile, Alabama was there between Florida, all the tourists were coming down to Florida and all the tourists were coming down to New Orleans, and nobody was coming to their hotels. And so they got together and they said, I think people have a highway, we need a highway. And they started envisioning the old Spanish Trail. And by 1919, the center in San Antonio became the headquarters section. We found that old highway markers in right at the turn of this new century. And the mayor at that time said, Charlotte, you're the historian, go see what this is all about. Well, I had gone to Google by 2002. So you Google OST and you get oysters and smoked turkey from Great Britain mailed to you in a box. And I said, I don't think that's what this is all about. So when we got down to finding out that it was a highway all the way across, that Mayor Ed Garza said, Charlotte, you don't have anything to do. You're 60 years old, you've raised your kids, you're out doing all kinds of history things. Let's have a centennial. And so he and I had worked on other projects before, and we know that it takes 15 years to get something this big going. And so we used that first decade to study about just about Texas and what the old Spanish Trail meant to Texas. And then we started having these annual reenactments of annual conferences in Mobile in 2015, in Tallahassee and Pensacola, and on. And now, as Jack said, in 1923, they had a big conference here. So here we are in 2023 to celebrate that. And this is one of the easiest conferences that I have had to do, because we've done 10 or 12 of them so far. We lost a couple to COVID. But having somebody like Larry Fletcher who can talk about how to envision a highway, and then somebody like Rob Harding to say, here's how you build a highway, and then somebody like Newell Booth to say, come on out, we're going to drive you along the highway. And we've never had that before in so easy to do. So I think we were going to start with Larry envisioning areas, his grandfather, just your grandfather. That was so of how to get a highway to your city. Yeah.
Good morning. I believe it comes out of necessity. First of all, grandfather he was always thinking ahead, but he was 30 years ahead. There are many stories, but he always was way ahead of most other people. I recall stories of him that he could not even drive a car, because when he did, and he went up 6th Avenue or 5th Avenue, the trolley used to sideswipe him. Now, trolleys don't sideswipe cars. He was so busy thinking he could not concentrate on driving. So they always had him in a car in the back seat, and he was thinking, and had a driver. Well, at 14, I had the opportunity of starting to drive when his driver was off on vacation. So I always had an opportunity to visit with grandfather more so from 14 through about 20. With 10 children, I would say grandfather and grandmother did not have a whole lot of time to spend with us as grandchildren, because they were so busy and they were spread out with so many children. Today, grandfather and grandmother could visit with grandchildren, very easily, babysit and so on. That was not the case. Grandfather was always so busy working and thinking about the next step and way out ahead on how to feed his family that, well, that's kind of my story. and that's how I will approach the conference.
Great, okay, I think Rob, you had a little bit to tell them about what you're gonna be doing.
Yeah, I'm Rob Harding. I'm from the Lakeside Historical Society. And my task here, I would say, is probably the questions being asked about and the different phases of the building of the highway. And my background was my mom and dad had a general engineering company, and I was riding around on a tractor as a young boy, and I decided to go that way. And I obtained a C12 earthwork and paving license, which I currently still have, and that just hooked me into this dirt. Working most of my life from the ground down, I fell in love with old road cuts, and with these road cuts, loving history so much, I've even gotten into the equipment of those eras. And I really got hooked one time. We were doing a job in Boulevard as a young guy, and we'd have lunch most days in Jacumba, and the Jacumba Springs Hotel was still standing, partially burnt. And my mind would just go crazy thinking about that, how the old travelers were traveling then. And then from that point on, the last 40 years, I've always taken sections of the highway, and I've covered them all from Ocotillo to El Cajon. And that's why I'm here now. And I was in the Johnstown area for quite some time, so I was able to help the OST people develop a driving map, and I think everybody should come out and drive it, because there's things that are hidden on this road that you never knew they're there from the 1920s. And Charlotte's done a good thing by bringing all this together. I think it's great. And then with all my vast contacts with all the roads and everything out here, I'm going to share a movie that we made about 5 years ago that is developed around a desert canvas water bag, driving a 1903 Model T, and the name of it's called Going to California, and it was a fun movie we put together. I do have a historical intro, but I want everybody to come out and see this movie, and as I sign off here, we have to think about one thing. In 1915, when California had the Pan American World's Expo here, a lot of folks who are adventurous did not take the easy train here. They took the old Spanish Trail when it was a dirt road all the way to California. Larry's dad accepted the bell ringing at the Pacific Milestone in 1923 from Calvin Coolidge. So anyway, that's I'm going to be here, and we're going to be talking about the old parts of the roads. That's my role.
And then Newell.
I'm Newell Booth. I am organizing a motorcade that is going to be our Saturday event. We will be starting at the hotel next door, the Courtyard by Marriott, 9 a.m. and it'll be led by classic cars, but anyone is welcome to bring any automobile. You'll be given a map of the route and also a descriptive map written by Charlotte and Rob that will tell you about things on the highway that you may want to come back and look at. You probably won't have time that day. But we're leaving here shortly after 9, like 9:15, 9:30, going out east toward Dehisha Road, and another pickup spot if you want some more maps and information would be at the Dehisha Road Market and Gas Station on Dehisha Road, just before Dehisha Road leaves, I can't remember it, but it goes up the hill. We're going up to Tavern. The Alpine Museum is going to be open for us. We're going to have a couple of old cars there, and plenty of parking there and across the street. And from there we'll go down, catch the old Spanish Trail at Arnold Way in Alpine, and follow Arnold Way and the Spanish Trail to Fletcher, Flint Springs. Flint Springs is a lunch provided by the old Spanish Trail organization, and we will get to visit and talk about what we've seen. And then from there on, there's also a map to bring you back to the Marriott Courtyard, via the old Spanish Trail. So it should be an interesting morning for November 4th, Saturday. Thank you.
Any questions?
And Bonnie, would you like to say a word or two?
Well, I currently am a trustee for the Standing History Center, so I work with them, and the Fletcher family has a foundation, so I'm co-president of the Fletcher Foundation. And we have a lovely family, I love our family, and the Colonel was very important to us, and we're proud of him. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this conference.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'd also like to introduce to you the president of the Olaf Weghorst Museum Foundation, Jim Daniels. Jim's sitting over there, and Jim is essentially the founder of this organization, going back to the very, very beginning in 1992, when he was the president of the Elkhorn Chamber of Commerce, and he's been with the organization, actually a creator of the organization, been with the organization ever since. So thank you, Jim, and thank you for letting us do all this here today. Okay, questions? Anyone have any questions?
I heard earlier that the women of the Women's Club in Lemon Grove had done some beautification along the trail. Can you give us a little bit of that history?
Yeah, we were, it's been many years ago, Jack emailed me, knowing that the old Spanish Trail originally came on what has now become California 94, but it's the old Wiggly Waggly Road right next to 94. And we found out that it went through Lemon Grove, and there was this amazing group of women that had formed their women's club and built a clubhouse. They were, this is 100 years ago. They were attorneys. They helped build the school district. They worked tirelessly, and we are pretty sure that they were involved with the beautification of the highway once it got built, as far as trying to get not so sharp curves, also approaching the highway builders and highway people about speed limits, because the state didn't have anything like that in the early years when they were first formed. And so the Lemon Grove Women's Club, and remind me of the actual name of it.
The Forward Club.
The Forward Club. They had this beautiful, they built a beautiful big red house to meet in. It belongs to a church now on a hill, and you can still see it as you drive by. But when I go, Jack and I are going to the different organizations and inviting them to come to the whole conference as either as exhibitors in the exhibit hall, or as just listeners to the lectures, or driving the drive with Newell. When I went to that women's club, they met in a little tiny room about the size of the end of this, packed with people who each time I said something, they got all excited about it. And I don't always have that. Like I said, when we came from San Antonio, Texas, and we go to other cities to plan these conferences, here in San Diego, the people that have stepped forward to help are just amazing. And then Jim lets us use this hall for various things. And then all the people that have come on to help us has just been amazing. The Women's Club are gonna take some tables at our exhibit and exhibit how they got started and what they're doing now. So we're hoping that many people will give me a call or email me and get an exhibit going from their organization as well.
We've talked a bit about the history of Highway 80, in the very beginning, as the city of San Diego was pushing roadways out, they actually pushed out along Imperial Avenue. And it was originally, this push out was originally called the Imperial Highway. And that is, it was the highway to Imperial County. And so the first roadway that was going to span the county followed basically the trolley line out of downtown San Diego, and then came through Lemon Grove. Now, subsequently, for a variety of reasons, the Transcontinental Highway shifted to what we now know as the Interstate 8 corridor, or the Highway 80 corridor, and so it bypassed Lemon Grove. But in 1915, the old Spanish Trail Highway went right down Lemon Grove Avenue, which stayed Lemon Grove Avenue.
Yeah, and I did neglect to mention that that old highway, when they first drew the line on the map, and when Colonel Fletcher went and said it has to come to San Diego, well, there was a well-defined freight and mail wagon train route. And they had been using it for so many years that it was packed hard, and you could drive easily those new Hupmobiles or whatever the brand new car words were, even before Model T Fords. And so you could drive on it so easily, and that's the one that came through Lemon Grove and down that way. And it wasn't until later, when San Diego got built a little north and kind of grew out into the East County, that the road builders got a little bit less of a grade if they went on the old 80 route. So that's how that happened. They did change that in the late 1920s and early 30s, yeah.
I'll put in another plug for Lemon Grove, and that is Ed Fletcher, as a young man recently married, bought a tract of land, I believe about 10 acres in Lemon Grove in 1901, I think. And then he built a home in Lemon Grove, for his father. He subsequently moved on both into downtown and in the Helix area. But Ed was responsible for bringing the first first piped water into the city of Lemon Grove, and he remained on it had multiple names, but basically the Lemon Grove Water Company for I think about 30 years. He was on the board of directors, of that water company. So lots of interrelationships between the various cities and towns and the Fletcher family here in San Diego. Other questions? We thank you very much for coming today, and please, if you'd like to see a 1922 Hupmobile, there's one in the patio, and Newell will be happy to show you and basically give you an idea of how much nicer it is to have a car today than it was back then. Thank you very much.